So what we're going to do is generally we're talking about the topic of growth, and I think let's first just, if you could just introduce yourselves so that everyone gets to know you a bit better. Starting with you.
Okay. I'm Charo, and I manage all global organic acquisition at Buongiorno. At Buongiorno, we make both native apps and mobile web apps, and we are part of a Japanese operator called NTT Docomo.
Hi, my name is Paulina. I'm CEO and co-founder at startup Captain Cook. We developed a mobile app simplifying daily meal preparation and shopping.
And I'm Michaela from Grunonia. We are a German publishing house, and I'm in the app marketing department, handling the app marketing for a couple of e-papers and service apps.
And I'm still the same from 20 minutes ago. So I do acquisition and growth at 8fit.
Yeah, so kind of the drive and what we're going to talk a little bit about is growth. It's sort of interesting for me because actually I think that I'm feeling a trend has moved away from user acquisition to actually much more about engagement, user engagement, and less about growth in that sense. And the traditional sense maybe a year ago what we'd be talking about. But I think overall I'd be interested to, in terms of the question that a lot of people will have is on how do you get your app to, say, a critical mass. If you could have one tip or one area that you think is really important and just sort of explain a little bit about why, and then we'll go from there. I think we'll move it down to Paulina. Could I get you to go first this time?
Yeah, sure. So I would say that to get to the critical mass, what is helpful for us is definitely the word of mouth. And you would probably hear a lot from different talks, just do the things that do not scale. And I think we're doing the things and it works very well. So we are building the relationships. So we're not simply acquiring users through Facebook ads because it's not so cheap. At the same time, of course, time is also valuable, but we would be investing time into relationship with our users, with our bloggers who are also our ambassadors. And this kind of relationship is very time-lasting. And on this kind of ambassadors, you can also count. So they are sharing our content, they are sharing our vision and mission, and it helped us a lot within the last 2 years since our inception.
Okay, great. Mayla.
Yeah, so my tip for getting your app to critical mass would be, don't think there's the magic pill which will bring you to critical mass. Focus on a couple of strategic steps. Focus on having a plan, and focus on validating your product. Is your product having all it has to have in order to bring your app to critical mass? Meaning, does it have the engagement? Does it have the viral loops in the app? And validate it constantly. Validate the product. Validate your marketing channels, and constantly, constantly refocus actually, and constantly do the math and readjust your critical mass.
In my case, it's funny because I do acquisition, and usually when people ask me what I have to do, I answer, you have to focus on retention and monetization. And my one tip today would be, if you manage to monetize better than your competition, then you will be able to outrank them on buying inventory. And eventually, if you're making more profit out of every user, acquisition is never going to be a problem because you're going to bid more than them and still make more money than them. There's a little bit of irrationality, and eventually you're going to find a competitor that has lots of VC money, but that will run out at some time. And if you got better monetization, then on the acquisition side, things are getting very easier. So that would be my tip.
Okay.
For me, the main tip would be video. So inserting a video is always going to increase your click-through rate. And depending on the app, you can make a short video impacting, if you have the chance to localize it, make it in different languages as well. If it's a kind of a more conventional app, then make a tutorial. It depends, but always insert a video. That's my tip.
I mean, we found at Tune that actually once you, let's say, evolve beyond the concept that last click wins and you start doing multi-touch, when that first touch comes from video, it's pretty powerful. The conversion, the retention, like all the numbers are higher sooner as well. It's very interesting. Okay, so we're going to open up. I mean, we could probably spend the rest of the day talking amongst ourselves, but we want to just open up to the floor and see if you have any questions. If you do, just put your hand up. There's mics. They'll come find you. Just say your name, your company, and then your question.
Hi. Oh, yeah, you can hear me. My name is Sagi. I'm with Yellowhead. We're a marketing performance agency. I'm the head of ASO. One of the major channels of growth that we found are localization. I mean, App Store localization, when you actually localize the keywords and the titles and descriptions and so forth. Now, I may have missed, but I didn't hear anyone really talking about this in particular, so I want to hear if you have any thoughts, because a lot of time we saw, like, when we work with clients, we saw like a couple of dozens of percentage of increase in like, English-speaking countries, but it's not uncommon to see hundreds of percentage of increase in like Thailand, Germany, Sweden, whatever. I mean, non-English speaking countries. So if you have any thoughts.
I'll take an example from before. If you look at Andy's slides, actually international localization is going through the different stage of it, and I think that's why it's important. It's not, for me, it's not an acquisition tactic. It's about everything. And yes, it's a powerful leverage for growth. In our case, we're kind of a small player. We focus a lot on the US, so it's a bit of a distraction on product iteration. We still translate the description in, I think, 15 languages or something, and it has bring some user, but it's not the main focus, something we keep for later growth, actually. Definitely a good strategy, but maybe you don't want to do it too early because it defocuses you from moving on your product. So not at the beginning, but yeah, it's absolutely a great leverage.
I'd love to talk with Dan about it with you. I'm sorry. I'd love to continue this discussion later on because I think a little differently than you.
Fair enough. Somebody else want to intervene?
I actually do it in two different ways, okay? It depends on the developer I'm dealing with. So I could be translating straight from the beginning, but if it's a product where I really want to make an impact on downloads on the different countries, I would do a proper ASO project, full on with keyword research and ASO on app in all the languages that the company has target for, okay? So there is an app I have in education where I actually have it from the very beginning in 4 different languages. And every single customized project that I do, let's say, like right now, Christmas campaign, so in the past, back to school, it would always be done in 4 different languages, okay? So it's not a translation. It's a proper customized research and ASO on app for all the languages I'm targeting.
I completely agree that it's not translations, it's localization. Completely agree. Thank you.
Hi there, my name's Tom from Wooga. I had a question for Thomas. How do you turn those 1-star reviews into 5-star reviews once you've made that contact? Are there any sort of do's and don'ts for that?
It's actually hard to be subtle with people, so we try to do it. So the whole thing is how we're going to please them enough so that they take the time to go and leave a new review that's going to wipe out the old one. As I said, it's a little bit easier in our case because we've got the chat within the app. And actually, the coach feature that we have is not available to all the users. So sometimes we might use that and send a proper fitness coach to people. And they would be so mind blown by having a real coach talking to them within the app and having a chat engaging that it helps a lot. But the truth is, even when you manage to have a unhappy customer being happy, lots of the time they just don't want to leave a review and they just don't do it. So it's true, it's a challenge, and the wording has to be very subtle, and we're not always doing it right, but in some cases it works. So we try to do our best. I think it's about customer support and the people answering to really care about the product and leave it for themselves. Not an easy task, I admit.
Hello. Hi. My name is Clemens from Media Affairs. I have a question for the whole panel. What do you think in terms of growth of direct response television advertising for app developers, especially for markets as big as Germany here in Europe?
Who wants to start on TV?
Okay, so in our case, we done TV advertising. It's helped a lot in the marketing mix, and especially for the impact it can have long term on the organic installs. So of course it depends on the country you are advertising, it depends on how long the TV campaign is, how many passes per day, okay? But at the end you can have an impact between 5 to 10 times more, like a multiplying power of 10 times in Google Play as an average, 5 times in iOS, and there is also another thing, and it's once the TV campaign has finished, how long that impact is going to last for, okay? So let's say if you have a one campaign lasting for 1 week, you can have a long-lasting effect of up to 3 weeks. If it's a couple of weeks, probably double that, but it's dependent on many factors, okay? But it's essentially basically another component you can throw into the app marketing mix there.
So combined with retention strategies, you think it's useful?
Sorry?
So combined with retention strategies, you think it's useful?
Yeah. I mean, it's for me, it's something that needs to be considered the same as you are doing ads. Okay, it's TV. If you got the budget for it, okay, it's something that you always need to take into account. So.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Boris. I'm the co-founder and CMO of GameDuel. I find it very interesting that you are tracing down the users once they have written reviews in the App Store. I don't know if you answered that before, then at least I didn't understand it. So how do you track down those users?
Tough question. There's actually a link about that. I think it's 3 ways to contact your iOS user or whatever. You'll find it in the talk. But some of them, they've got a pretty obvious username when they leave the review. So in that case, that's great. Some of them don't. So we've got an advanced Google search expert at stalking people. That's pretty good at it. And
how was the question?
Well, you can search him on the web and a whole different ways, or even tracking the review from other apps with the same name. The truth is that in our case, again, we've got a little easier case because a lot of our audience is in the US, but we've got lots of reviewers outside of the US, and for us, the other country that are not America are so small in the user base that by tracking the country and the period, usually we know when we ask people to review the first time. So we kind of look at that time frame, cross by the country, and go through the manually in the sign-up list and actually identify them. We can do that because we're pretty small, and it doesn't work all the time. But let's say a third of them are obvious. A third of them we manage to do it either via Google search or crossing the country, and more or less a third is just lost case, and we don't lose time on them. We try, we fail, move on.
Okay, thanks so much.
Interestingly, it was actually the topic we just discussed before the panel.
Stalking.
Yeah, stalking the users, because Well, we are also doing this. So because, as Thomas said, so one negative review is like you have to generate 7 really, really positive reviews. So that's why we are really trying also, like as he said, we are really manually trying to find the users, try to talk with them and try to persuade them that they have to change their opinion. And so sometimes, for example, these users are also, in our case, it was one blogger, which was a big one. It was not difficult to find him. And when he wrote a big text about us, it was with the title, "The Best Worst Cooking App." And of course, like when tons and tons of users see it, it's not really positive for us, but we felt like he wanted to say us something. So I reached out to him on Twitter, tried to explain him the whole situation about the development, what went wrong, what we want to improve, and so on. And since then, he is one of the best friends that we have. So he improved his review, and it was like a long one. And every time when I do a new update, I also inform him and ask him for feedback. So really try to iterate this kind of relationship and really stay in touch with them. Because there is a reason they wrote a review. It's not to bash you or so. Maybe they really had a problem. So you really have to find a solution for them to help. Yeah.
I'm over here. I'm Rasmus, founder of Hunger, the takeaway app. And we are a app focusing on the major cities in a country. So we're not a nationally covering app, and our idea was to roll out the app big city by big city. So let's do London, New York, Stockholm, whatever. How does that work in this app store and user acquisition? Because a lot of the stuff we heard about this morning is only really relevant if you cover a whole geography that the app store is in. I was just wondering if you have some ideas for us, or things you've seen for apps rollout that have this kind of geographic limitation.
Personally, I think it's a good idea to focus on a niche. I think the way Facebook's done it is exactly that. They focused on acquiring university by university, and they made it big. I would ask what your focus would be at the very moment. Do you want to learn more about your users, more about your product, or do you want to scale?
So we want to learn more and start to scale, and of course we're not going to roll out across the whole world. And so we have been here in Berlin for 6 months now, but
so probably App Store optimization is a good thing, but maybe not the focus. You can optimize on keywords, on local keywords, so the cities you are currently launching in. Definitely, you can make paid user acquisition on Facebook by targeting cities like social demographics. You can do a lot of stuff, but I think I would ask myself the question: what's the minimum size of users for you to validate your product? You know, I mean, do you need users who are testing your app in order to see, okay, which would be my in-app KPIs? How are they working? What are my viral effects? And from there on, you can calculate how you can scale it and how to.
It was more about to what extent you can have a successful app marketing strategy based only on major cities and not on full markets. That was it.
Yeah, I think you can have a successful strategy based on cities first, but then you would have to scale it. You would have to go on a whole market.
To be honest, I feel you have even an easier case for paid acquisition because you got a smaller pool, you already know better who you're targeting, you go less broad, and it's actually easier, even for keywords and stuff. I mean, putting the names of the big neighborhood or whatever, I mean, try that and go local. I think it's a chance that you have. The user base might be smaller, but it's easier to target. And you know specifics. You can put something that's relevant in the ad or in whatever, and put something that people really relate on. And actually, we target a whole country, but we try to go local because relevance improves the ads, and we try to do that. I think it's a chance that you have actually.
Yeah, I think just in this case, it is probably not the best case to get to be featured now. Otherwise, people will be like super unhappy to discover you. But at the same time, you cannot avoid people discovering you, although you're not in the city. It is pretty similar to our case also, because we wanted to target with our app also like the major cities, because we believe this is where our major user base is. So we tried actually to enable that our app is also having the content covering also the city. So in our case, it was the network of the supermarkets. And in the beginning, it was also not easy, probably quite as difficult as for you also to approach restaurants. For us, it was also difficult to approach supermarkets and to say, hey, we're a small app, and suddenly you have to give us some data or so. So there is some kind of things some things you can fake, but still try to please your users. And also reach out to the local communities. So I think in your case, like everybody loves food, I know it, So just reach out to local people, local food bloggers, and give them some perks and just let them talk about you. So in your big cities, the number of users will be more kind of concentrated. So this is what I do.
We're now officially in the way of coffee break, so I can see some people getting a bit itchy for their caffeine fix. So we'll just sort of round up and say for 2016, what's the one thing that you're going to focus on, or the one thing that you really want to get right that you think will be the major growth driver for you? And just go through the panel, please.
For me, customized events, so always bearing in mind the type of app I'm marketing, and have a really specific event calendar, not just according to countries, but also about very specific activities that we are also doing to accompany them.
Yeah, for us, probably 2016 will be scale year. So we tested already many things. Now it's time to scale. That's why I think it will be customization also for other countries. And also more going to the direction of paid marketing. In this case, as I said, yes, you can put time and effort into creating relationships, but at the same time, there are also great tools to reach out to influencers, and it is relatively also cheap to interact with them. And I think influencer marketing, when you just see how many tools are on the market just within the last 10 months, I think it will be the next big thing also for app user acquisition.
For us, it will be the product, focusing on getting the conversion rates optimized in order to achieve a revenue per install, which will allow us to scale and to buy the installs we need to.
And I'll take something from Tom. I would say deliver the universe. Actually, I think it's a great news that the app industry has moved away from acquisition and focus lots on retention. For me, retention is about customer happiness, and how we plan to do it is the same as Charu said that, I think, getting more personalized and more customized. How can we split our audience into tiny groups of audience and talk to them differently to make them happy? Because everybody has different needs with the same app. So go personalize is my answer.
Okay, thank you very much. Everybody just round of applause for the panel.